Have you ever seen a man bury his wife with one hand, while the other hand holds a crying newborn? That was the morning Chief Boma Kalei's world cracked open. The village river flowed as if nothing had happened. The birds sang. The fishermen prepared their nets, but inside Boma's chest, it felt like the earth had gone dark. His beloved wife Lamy, the woman who filled his house with laughter, lay still forever, and in her arms, she left behind a baby girl, too young to even know what death meant. 3 little boys stood confused in the corner, their eyes swollen from crying, not fully grasping why their mother would never sing them to sleep again. And, in that moment, with tears burning his eyes, Boma made a vow that would shape the rest of his life. From today, I will be father and mother at once. Poverty will never make my children its slaves. Even if this river swallows me, I will not fail them. Before she died, Lamy had whispered one last request. She clutched the baby's tiny fist, her voice shaking but firm. She came on Monday. Her name will be Inya. Don't change it, Boma. Let her carry this name so that even when I am gone, my roots will live on. Boma had wanted to argue, to rename her as his tradition demanded, but the way Lamy's eyes pleaded with him he could not refuse. So the name stayed. From that day forward, every morning before the cock crowed, Boma developed a ritual. He would rise from his raffia mat, stare at Lamy's photo on the wooden shelf, and whisper, "Don't worry, my love, I will keep my promise. I will raise them, even if my back breaks." His children became his reason to fight. Piri, the eldest, already carried himself like a small man. Tenji II loved books more than food. Dari, the last boy, was always chasing chickens and laughter. And then there was little Inyu, quite watchful and sharp as a blade, though often overlooked. But poverty does not respect promises. One morning, as the children got ready for school, Inya's hopeful eyes turned to her father. "Papa, will I start secondary school this term?" The room fell silent. Boma's chest tightened. He cleared his throat. "Inya, my daughter, I tried. I really tried. But the money is not enough. I paid for your brothers. Yours will have to wait." Her face fell. "But Papa, I'm always first in class. Teacher says I must not stop now." Piri spoke up, too quickly. "Papa, maybe she can manage at home this year. My fees are higher now." Boma turned to him, his voice sharp. "Are your sister's dreams less important because she is a girl?" The boy lowered his gaze. The house grew heavy with silence. And then Inya, with tears clinging to her lashes, forced a small smile. "It's okay, Papa. One day, I'll make so much money, I'll build my own school and teach myself." Her words stabbed Boma's heart. He pulled her close, whispering, "Forgive me, my daughter. Forgive me, I am doing my best." The next morning, he took her to Mama Yema, the village seamstress. "School will wait," he said quietly. "But her mind must not sleep. Teach her tailoring. I will pay however I can." The old woman studied the little girl, then laughed softly. "Small one, can your hands hold a needle without poking your eyes?" Inya's voice was steady. "Yes, Ma, I will learn fast. One day, I will be the best tailor in all of Bahalsa." For the first time in weeks, her face lit up. That evening, as Boma pushed his canoe into the fading sunset, he spoke to the river like an old friend. "Nun, river, you hear me? Give me fish. Tonight, my children need books. My daughter, she needs a chance." With weary arms but unbroken spirit, he rode into the darkening waters, fighting not just for fish, but for the future of a girl who dared to dream. The days that followed were not easy. Chief Boma's canoe returned from the river each night, with fewer fish than the family needed. The tides had grown unpredictable, the river no longer as generous as in the old days. Some nights, he would come home with only a handful of tilapia and one tired catfish, too small to satisfy his hungry children. But no matter how empty his nets were, Boma never allowed his house to be empty of hope. At night, after supper, he would gather the children around the kerosene lamp, his voice deep and commanding. "My children, listen to me. You are not like others. You carry your mother's spirit and my sweat in your blood. You will not be common. You will rise." The boys nodded, their chests swelling with pride. But Inya, though quiet, took his words more seriously than all of them combined. Her little fingers were already bruised from threading needles at Mama Yima's shop, yet she refused to complain. One afternoon, Mama Yima paused her sewing machine and studied the girl. "Inya, do you know why I agreed to take you?" It is not because your father begged me. It is because when you walked in here, your eyes told me something hunger, not for food, but for greatness. You remind me of myself when I was young. The words sank deep into Inya's spirit. That day, she promised herself that even if she could not go to school, she would make her needle her pen, and her fabric her book. Meanwhile, life at home carried its own battles. Piri, the eldest, had started to feel the weight of being the man after the man. One evening, he muttered, "Papa, why do we always suffer? Other children have new uniforms, while mine are torn." Boma looked at him, his face stern. "Do you think suffering is a curse? No, suffering is a fire. If it does not burn you, will refine you. Do not despise these days, they are shaping you." But in the quiet of his own heart, Boma wrestled with guilt. His promise to Lami felt heavier each day. He often stood outside at night, staring at the stars, whispering, "My love, am I failing them, or will these scars make them stronger?" Then came the turning point. One humid evening, Boma returned from the river with nothing, his net empty, his body weak. He collapsed by the riverside, burying his face in his hands. That was when little Inya, barely 12, came running with a small cloth bag. "Papa," she said, panting, "Mama Yema gave me these coins. She said I made my first blouse today, and she sold it." She opened the bag and poured out the little coin into his rough palms. They clinked like treasures. Boma stared at them, then at his daughter, his eyes filled with tears. "My daughter, you are already carrying my burden." Inya shook her head quickly. "No, Papa, I am carrying my own dream." Those words struck Boma harder than the river's current. For the first time, he realized his little girl was not just enduring poverty. She was fighting it, in her own way. That night, as the lantern flickered low, Boma gathered his children again. His voice trembled but carried fire. "Listen to me. We may eat salt and gari today, but mark my words, one day, this family will be a story the whole world will hear. Not because we had everything, but because we fought with nothing and still rose." The children watched him in silence, their eyes wide, and though they did not fully understand, something sacred was planted in their hearts that night. But little did Boma know poverty was not his only battle. Inya's gift would soon attract both envy and opportunity, and the choices ahead would test not just her, but the very vow he made to his late wife. Opportunities often come dressed like trouble. For Inya, it began on a hot afternoon in Mama Yima's shop. She was bent over her work, stitching carefully, when the village head's wife, Madame Talou, walked in with two other women. They needed new wrappers stitched before the festival. Mama Yema welcomed them warmly, but when she stepped aside, Madame Talou's eyes fell on little Inya. "Who is this child?" she asked, her voice sharp. Mama Yema smiled proudly. "This is Ba, daughter. Small as she is, her hands are quick." She stitched that blouse on the wall. The women turned. The blouse hung neatly, its pattern straight, its finishing clean. Madame Talou raised her eyebrows. "You mean this child did that?" Inya bowed her head shyly. "Yes, Ma." Instead of praise, Madame Talou sneered. A fisherman's daughter. What does she know of cloth?" "Mama Yema, don't waste your time training her. Children like this should be fetching water, not pretending to be seamstresses." The words stung like hot pepper. Inya's fingers trembled, but she kept sewing, refusing to let the tears fall. Later that evening, she told her father. Bah, jaw tightened. He clenched his fist. "Listen to me, Inya. People will laugh at you before they clap for you. Don't waste your tears on them. Let your work answer them one day." But Madame Talou's words were not the only sting. Within the household, jealousy began to grow. Piri, the eldest son, noticed how his father often praised Inye's determination. One night, as they ate roasted yam, he muttered under his breath, "Papa cares more about her tailoring than my school fees." Boma turned to him, eyes stern. "Don't speak foolishness. Each of you carries your own light. Do not dim your sisters." But Piri's pride had already been wounded. Inya could feel the distance growing between them, though she said nothing. Then came the festival. The whole village gathered, music and drums filling the air. Stalls lined the square, selling food, jewelry, and fabrics. For the first time, Mama Yema allowed Inya to display two blouses she had sewn. She laid them carefully on a small table, her heart beating fast. At first, people ignored them, but then, a young trader from Port Harcourt stopped. He picked up one blouse, turned it inside out, and whistled. "Who stitched this?" "Inya." Mama Yema replied proudly, pointing at the girl. The trader smiled. This is fine work. I will take both. He dropped crisp notes of naira on the table. Inya's eyes widened. She had never seen that much money at once. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd. A fisherman's daughter, selling clothes at the festival. Some admired her, others scoffed. And in the shadows, Madame Tolu's lips curled in contempt. That night, when Boma saw the money Inya brought home, his eyes filled with both pride and fear. Pride, because his daughter's gift was undeniable. Fear, because he knew success attracts not only friends, but enemies. And he was right. A few days later, rumors began to spread that Inya was too proud, that she thought she was better than other children, that Mama Yema favored her over older apprentices. The whispers grew louder, reaching even the chief's council. Some began to ask, what kind of girl chooses cloth over school? What future is that? But while the world gossiped, Inya kept working, her hands steady, her dreams burning brighter, until the day tragedy struck again. One evening, Boma returned from the river late, his canoe dragging behind him. His body was weak, his breathing heavy. The children rushed to him in panic. Papa, what happened? Inya cried, holding his arm. Boma collapsed on the floor, his chest heaving. The river nearly swallowed me today. The children wept, frightened. But Boma, through his pain, looked at Inya and whispered, if anything ever happens to me, don't let poverty bury your dreams. Fight, Inya, fight harder than I ever could. Those words would soon become a fire that no storm could extinguish. The night after Boma collapsed, the house felt heavy with fear. The kerosene lamp flickered, shadows dancing on the mud walls. His breathing was shallow, his body weak, yet his spirit refused to bow. Inya sat by his side, refusing to sleep. She held a rag, cooling his forehead, whispering prayers only heaven could hear. At dawn, he stirred. His voice was a broken whisper. Inya, if I cannot rise tomorrow, promise me you will rise for all of us. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but her jaw set firm. Papa, you will rise, but even if you don't, your dream will not die. I will carry it. Those words gave him a faint smile. But deep down, Boma knew the river had taken its toll. Days turned into weeks. His strength faded further. The boys tried to help fetching water, selling small fish, but the weight of responsibility fell heavier on Inya's shoulders. And then came the breaking point. Piri, consumed by pride and resentment, lashed out one evening. This is not fair. Everything is about Inya. She sows, she earns, she shines. What about us? What about me? His words cut like a knife. Inya looked at him, her voice steady. Brother, this is not a competition. If I rise, we all rise. Can't you see? But jealousy has deaf ears. Piri stormed out, leaving the family in painful silence. The very next week, tragedy struck again. Boma did not return from the river. The villagers found his canoe drifting by the bank, empty. His body was pulled from the water hours later. The children's cries shook the village. Inya clung to his lifeless form, her voice breaking. Papa, you promised not to leave us. You promised. The burial was small but heavy with sorrow. Yet, as the last clods of earth fell on his grave, Inya remembered his words. Don't let poverty bury your dreams. Fight. That night, she made a vow under the moonlight. Papa, from today, I will not only fight, I will win. For you, for Mama, for all of us. From then on, Inya worked as if fire was in her veins. She stitched from sunrise to midnight, taking every order, no matter how small. When others mocked her, she smiled. When customers doubted her, she let her work speak. Slowly, her name began to spread beyond the village. Traders carried her blouses to nearby towns. People whispered, there is a girl in Bahalsa whose hands create magic. Even her brothers, once doubtful, began to see. Tenji helped with measurements, Dari ran errands, and even Piri, ashamed of his jealousy, returned one evening and said softly, forgive me, sister. I see now you are our light. Inya only smiled. No, brother. We are each other's light. Years passed. The girl who once begged for school fees now owned her own workshop. The same Madame Tolu who once sneered now sent her daughters to learn under Inya's hands. On the day she opened her tailoring school, the school she once promised herself, she placed a framed picture of her father and mother at the entrance. She whispered, your seeds did not die. They bloomed. And as the drums of celebration filled the air, Inya stood tall, her voice strong for all to hear. Let the world know poverty may bend us, but it cannot break us. I was the daughter of a fisherman. I was the girl they said would never go far. But today, I rise. And if I can rise, so can anyone. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Inya's eyes lifted quietly to the sky. For somewhere beyond the clouds, she knew her parents were smiling. And thus, the story of Inya, the girl who turned her needle into destiny, became a story told not just in Baelsa, but across every shore the river touched.